Okay, now moving on to a recap of the information that we have looked at so far and making links towards um, quantifiable methods. Here we go. Right. We have spoken about structure and agency. And just to recap and perhaps with a pointer for your leaflet, structure, as we have discussed, is an end on a scale. Agency is the other end. Structure sees the world, the social world, as by and large creating human beings, making them as they are, constraining thought, action, and deed. Culture made up of norms, values, statuses, and roles, and other elements act, if you like, as a wire mesh to push us through, and we all come out conformed to the other end. Structure suggests that there is a social reality, that norms and values can be established as verifiable facts. It is often connected to positivism, in that positivism is a word for describing the natural sciences and in particular the scientific methodology. And it describes a way of seeing the social world in the same way natural sciences see the natural world. That is, there are underlying governing laws, that it can all be measured through observation and so on. Theirs is just like you wouldn't ask a scientist to tell you what the motivation of individual animals in a herd is, or if they're a biologist, or to talk about the individual thought and action that a blade of grass has when looking at the natural world. It wouldn't make sense to them. In the same way, structuralists, it wouldn't make sense to them to ask about individual motivations. Agency, right on the other side of the scale, that denies structure. At its heart is the criticism of the structural approach. It says that this universality, this way of the world being all the same, and the fixed norms and values which we're pushed through, it doesn't work like that. And that is because those norms and values, our culture is mediated, is negotiated through experience of the personal individual, the interaction with others, so that this stock of meaning that culture gives us is interpreted in different ways. If I can evidence this by going through each of the perspectives, hopefully that will not only help with where we're going, but may help you recap on your leaflet. Okay, so functionalism, the two concepts of functionalism are the body analogy and the value consensus. What they describe, functionalists, is they look at the world, the social world, like a human body with social institutions pumping around the good stuff of culture, which is rigid, which is fixed and conforms us. The body analogy suggests that any of the social institutions should fail in any way, that would have an impact on another part of the working of the body. It talks about the need for social equilibrium, meaning that there is a balance and that people know their place. It would suggest functionalism, for instance, would look at divorce rates and the instances of single parent or lone-headed families as being linked to the other social institution of crime and deviance, because without a male role model at home, that there is a lack of influence in the construction of discipline, and that this leads to a lack of respect to society and so on. So as one social institution breaks down, it has an impact on another. And they're very interested in measuring divorce rates. They're very concerned that divorce is on the increase or has been on the increase, and they are very concerned about the instance of lone-headed families. Theirs is a macro approach. They're looking at the family. They're not looking at the motivation of individuals. They're looking at the operation of the social institution and how they interact with each other. Marxism is very similar. Its two main ideas that I have asked you to look at is ideology or capitalist ideology and the idea of the superstructure. The superstructure is very similar to the body analogy in that it is about pumping around norms, values, status and role, our culture. But Marxists say this is unfair. Unlike functionalists, they say that this is not for the good of society, it is for the good of the few, not for the good of everyone. So it looks at the mechanisms of oppression through the superstructure, through mass media, through sport, through all sorts of institutions, you know. So the idea that if we watch EastEnders, we're not out on the street having a revolution, that what we pick up, the message we pick up from soaps, from newspapers, The Sun, etc., it keeps us in our place, it keeps us down, but it's talking about the same singular event. So it would measure the impact on a universal basis. It would use scientific measures. Marx himself talks about scientific socialism. Feminism, in that it is structural, and I say that because some feminists are on the agency side, as indeed some Marxists are, but I'll come to that as we go through the course. But the key concept here is patriarchy, which is a structure which explains inequality between genders in our society. It is a structure that suggests that patriarchy is universal. Not all feminists would sign up to this, and that it takes place in each society, and it's a way of saying how we are produced, we are done to. They too would look at examples of divorce as evidence for women waking up to their oppression, perhaps, and breaking free by rejecting the institution of marriage. And this statistics of, 7 out of 10 divorces are initiated by women, unhappy women presumably. So that would suggest that there is a pattern. Yeah, anything with the pattern and the stats that suggest a universality is on a structural side. I'm probably talking about early day feminists rather than the more sophisticated ones later. So forgive me if someone's watching this and saying, "What?" Anyway, so feminists say, in their simplistic going back sense, that if it is possible to see things like makeup, something as simple as makeup. Why do women wear makeup? You could see women as being victims of a process of sexualization, which is patriarchy in action, that forces them to wear things to make themselves attractive. Okay, so you could see that as part of patriarchal oppression. You could see it as a universal thing. Now, agency denies structure. I know it's something, I've talked about a lot, but it's worth thinking and letting that sink in. It says structure shouldn't exist and doesn't exist. Social action theory says we negotiate the norms, values, status and roles in our society. So that meaning that individual actors to attach to the social world is mediated through experience, speaking to others, being with others. So that it's different in each different situation. So if I can give you an example, whereas functionalists will be concerned with divorce rates because it will indicate a breakdown of the family, which is linked to lawlessness, whether feminists might look at divorce rates, particularly because they're instituted mainly by women, that they are evidence of women waking up to their oppression. Social action theorists would point to the fact that each individual case is different, that you cannot generalize divorce because divorce means different things in different social situations. It is not the same thing, so you can't lump them all together. Postmodernism looks at a further breakdown, a further diminution. It denies any unity or uniformity at all. It says that we live in a fragmented society, which is dominated by globalism. So we are now exposed to every truth, everywhere, every how, through the information superhighway. And it looks at the denial specifically of structure, of this idea of one size fits all, of one form of explanation or one truth. It talks about multiple truths. This is its criticism using the meta-narrative. Now, moving on and linking those to methodology. Structure, as I've said, is a scientific approach. It believes in objectivity. It believes in observation. Its key method, its key focus, therefore, is on reliability. Like the natural sciences, it wants not only, it wants a robust method of measuring the social world because it sees it as uniform. It sees it the same in Land's End as Donald Groves. It sees it the same throughout our country. So if it is the same, if you get the method of data collection right, if it's reliable, if it's representative, if it's dependable, if it can be repeated, it is scientifically provable. It is about counting. It's about observing from the outside. This is objectivity. This is what we're talking about. It is about number. It is about generalizing information so that one could say that statistically this is true or that is true. We're bombarded by statistics every day. Now, you can see how these fit together. Agency denies this. Agency denies this right the way through. It is a subjective approach. It denies objectivity. It says objectivity is false. It is the wrong way to look at things. It doesn't focus on reliability. It looks at validity, and validity is the key here. Validity means meaningful, means truthful, means accurate. So if I can put it another way, you can have a data collection tool from a structuralist point of view applied to collect data, but if what it is collecting is not meaningful, it is not valid, it is not true. It particularly denies, because it says all meaning is fragmented and changeable, that you cannot collect reliable numerical data. That is not valid. Statistics aren't valid. It focuses on the individual. It focuses on individual thought processes. It looks to recreate the social world as social actors within it see it. It looks to have qualitative or qualitative research methods. That means it's looking to gather the meaning of what people see in the words that people use to describe it. It's not imposing meaning from the outside, it's looking to capture subjectivity. Okay. Off.